That may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
Okay, we're going to go through and we are going to be talking about the worst fantasy playoff schedules that you have at the running back position. And I'm not going to lie, we're put into a pretty difficult decision because you're going to go through and you're going to look at this list and go, okay, well, Mason, it seems like every top running back in fantasy has a horrible playoff schedule. So we'll go through, we'll talk about some players that I think we just need to suck it up. We need to hold on to them and say, yeah, it sucks that we're not going to get a decent playoff matchup for this guy, but the opportunity means that he just has to be someone we're looking to hold versus, I mean, might as well just sell right now, possibly pivot over to someone with a better schedule. But nonetheless, before we get into the video, make sure you go down there, drop that like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. And yeah, we got to give away some Fantasy Flight Network hats for the people who did that on the last video. For Bryce and Chad, of course, thank you so much for deciding to go down there and drop that comment. Every single video, we're giving away multiple free Fantasy Flock Network hats. And of course, you can always just go get your own Fantasy Flock Network hat by deciding to join the flock on Patreon. When you join the flock on Patreon, you get an in-depth podcast breaking down your fantasy team. You get access to our rest of season rankings, which are up to date as of today. You get access to our dynasty rankings. You get access to our group chat. You get in dynasty leagues with us. There's so much going on over there on Patreon. And also, real quick before we get into it, make sure you go sign up for Underdog Fantasy with promo code FLOCK. When you sign up for Underdog Fantasy with promo code FLOCK and make your first deposit, they match you dollar for dollar on that deposit up to $100. They have a ton of cool player props. They have weekly fantasy drafts you can get into at the same time. Thomas, can you please throw up some of those player props now? But yeah, that should be it. Let's go through. Let's talk about some of these running backs. And the running back with the worst, and I repeat, the worst fantasy playoff schedule is someone that a few weeks ago we were saying that he was the best buy low running back in fantasy, Christian McCaffrey. Now with Christian McCaffrey, oh my gosh, week 15, the Buffalo Bills, the toughest run defense in the NFL. Week 16, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, right there. I mean, right now they're ranked as the 6th defense against the run. Honestly, I think they're a little tougher than that. And then you have the New Orleans Saints in the championship week here. Another top 5 defense against the rush. I have no idea how Christian McCaffrey got this unlucky to have this stretch of matchups for the fantasy football playoffs. It makes no sense. One thing that I'll also say with Christian McCaffrey, and I hate to bring this up because y'all know, I mean, I think a lot of people in the flock right now have Christian McCaffrey. They have him on their roster because we went through and we just continually said, trade for him, trade for him, trade for him, get him everywhere you can. Nobody else in fantasy football has the ceiling that Christian McCaffrey possesses to get up to 28, 29 fantasy points on a per game basis. And with Christian McCaffrey, this is a running back that usually is in his completely own tier. Like it's Christian McCaffrey at the running back 1 spot, but it's usually not even fair to say that because it's like Christian McCaffrey, when he's fully healthy, if you're going back to 2019, 2020 in the limited sample that we had, this was a running back that was giving you on average at least 5 points per game more than the next best running back. Like he was 20% better than the next best guy on the list. There was a larger gap between Christian McCaffrey and the running back 2 than there was between the running back 2 and the running back 10. Now, a couple things have changed here. Since we were going through and talking about Christian McCaffrey being in that own tier, his own tier by himself, this team went out there and they got Cam Newton. With Cam Newton coming in, presumably being the starting quarterback this week by all reports for the Carolina Panthers, and not only this week, but also going forward, you have to change your expectations with Christian McCaffrey. The reason for this is with Cam Newton, he is going to be vulturing touchdowns at the goal line, as we've already discussed. And I know a lot of people said, oh, Mason, Christian McCaffrey almost scored a touchdown this past week. He got down at the 2. Yeah, that's the issue. When you get down at the 2 when you're Christian McCaffrey, usually if you have Teddy Bridgewater, Sam Darnold, PJ Walker in there, Christian McCaffrey, they're going right back to him. He's running in from the 2-yard line. He's picking up that rushing touchdown. However, Cam Newton, 12 rushing touchdowns last season. This is a running back that once you get to the goal line, Cam Newton is a very, very effective quarterback, and how he's just a monstrous human. And obviously he can just dunk the ball over the opposing defensive line and it's just completely fine. Now, it's not going to help us out for Christian McCaffrey's fantasy production. And I know a lot of people have gone to the comment section and have said, well, Mason, you idiot. Don't you know that Christian McCaffrey was the running back one when Cam Newton was in Carolina? Don't you know that Christian McCaffrey was dominant with Cam Newton? That's not true. That's not true at all. Christian McCaffrey was a fantastic running back with Cam Newton in Carolina, and Christian McCaffrey will still be a top 3 running back going forward. But like we said, in 2020, he averages 30 fantasy points a game. In 2019, throughout the entire season, he averages 29.5 fantasy points per game. Last time we saw him with Cam Newton, that was 2018. He's still a top 3 running back, of course, but you have to lower your expectations down. And here, instead, he actually averages 24 points per game. That's like a 15 to 20% drop. It's real. It's something that we have to bring up. It's something that you can't be excited about. Combine that with the fact that you have this horrendous fantasy playoff schedule and the fact he's not through his bye week yet. Christian McCaffrey, I don't know if we can have him at running back 1 anymore. I think maybe we have to move him behind some of these other options. Maybe we have to just move him behind someone like Jonathan Taylor. I mean, Jonathan Taylor, y'all know we said it 2 weeks ago, he was our running back 1. Last week, he was our running back 1 from a weekly standpoint, but we didn't have him there in our rest of season rankings. I was going to prefer someone like Christian McCaffrey, but now all of a sudden, Taylor's getting this usage in the receiving game. And at the same time, Newton's coming over and he's going to be vulturing rushing touchdowns from Christian McCaffrey at the goal line. I think I have to be a little bit concerned, especially with this playoff schedule. Please let me know what you think. Obviously, I'm honestly just wasting our breath here. There's no real argument to be made. You're playing Christian McCaffrey every single week. It's just essentially, do you want Christian McCaffrey? Do you want Jonathan Taylor? Do you want Najee Harris? I think those are the top 3 running backs. I don't think you can make an argument for anybody else at this point. I would love to know your opinion. Now let's go over to our next running back. This is someone that's been on our sell high list I don't know how many times this season, Damien Harris. Now with Harris here, talking about a schedule, I mean, he's going up against the Colts defense in week 15, the 5th toughest defense against the run. Then in week 16, he has the Buffalo Bills, the toughest defense against the run in the NFL. And then he has the Jacksonville Jaguars, which surprisingly, I was like, oh, Jacksonville? Shouldn't that be a great spot? Honestly, not as great as what you'd assume. Right now, they are 12th in the NFL against the run. So honestly, average to slightly above average. So yeah, Damien Harris, you really don't like to see those first 2 matchups. And he is actually a running back that is kind of dependent on having a good matchup because we've discussed a lot. I mean, someone like Christian McCaffrey, someone like DeAndre Swift, they can overcome a really bad matchup because they're not relying on the running efficiency of their offense. Rather, they're more so relying on the fact that, hell, I'm going to get my 6-7 receptions regardless. So who the hell cares who the opposing defense is? In the case of Damien Harris, that's not the case. In the case of Damien Harris, you need the trips to the red zone. You need his run blocking efficiency to be through the roof. You need him to get to the rushing touchdown. If that doesn't happen with Damien Harris, I mean, he's a straight up bust in fantasy that week. And also, what's something that we've been talking about for a very long time, dating back to this summer, we were talking about this. With Ramondre Stevenson, running back that y'all know I liked coming into the season based on the fact that, I mean, he looked like he had a similar level of team investment that you had into Damien Harris. And at the same time, this was a running back that profiled that he could play all 3 downs, that he could be a capable receiving running back out of the backfield, where Harris, we know that he's going to be that 1st and 2nd down grinder, and there's really no upside for anything more. We were expecting that Stevenson was going to continue to increase his role, and near the end of the season, he was going to have a weekly role in this New England Patriots offense. I think that Stevenson maybe just made that true all of a sudden this past week after rushing for 100 yards against the Cleveland Browns. So combine Damien Harris's lack of upside with no involvement in the receiving game, combine the horrible playoff matchups that he has, as well as just throw on the fact that this is a running back that maybe is getting his role taken down a notch with Stevenson breaking out. I'd be going through trying to sell Harris. Of course, you're not getting a massive return, so it definitely sucks to say. But still, I just want to be at least bringing him up and saying if we can include him with the wide receiver and pivot over and get an elite wide receiver upgrade, if right now you're viewing Damien Harris as a depth running back, I think that could be intriguing. Now let's go over to our next running back with a tough schedule for the fantasy football playoffs, and this is going to be Josh Jacobs. Now, Jacobs, trust me, I have him on a lot of best ball rosters. I mean, on Underdog Fantasy, whenever we were going through and streaming every single night, he was falling to the 5th, 6th round. I was sitting there going, okay, give me Josh Jacobs in the 6th round every day of the week. So I'm rooting for Jacobs. But yeah, he's going to be going up against the Cleveland Browns week 15, the Denver Broncos week 16, the Indianapolis Colts. As we've discussed, the Colts are right now the 5th best defense against the run. Not a nice matchup for Jacobs. Very similar to Damien Harris, with Josh Jacobs, this is a running back that you're having to rely on the running efficiency being there. I mean, this past week against the Chiefs, I will say he has 5 receptions, which is very encouraging. I mean, Josh Jacobs, it's surprising to see that this is a running back that's had 23 receptions so far. I mean, through 7 weeks. He's averaging over 3 receptions a game, which of course you love from a PPR format. But with the role that you've had with Kenyon Drake in this offense, I mean, with Kenyon Drake coming out, I mean, just being that secondary running back here, not allowing Josh Jacobs to see 75% of the touches in this backfield. I mean, I know this past week with Kenyon Drake, this wasn't necessarily a spot that you could go through and say, okay, well, this is what we can expect going forward, because of course the Kansas City Chiefs came out here and they dominated throughout the entire game. Kenyon Drake did end up having 4 carries out of the backfield, which was neck and neck with what we had with Josh Jacobs at 7. He ended up having 3 targets out of the backfield. The week before he had 8 targets, which is definitely something that I want to point out here. With Jacobs, I'm just a little bit worried because, I mean, you really need to have some great matchups when we're going to go through and play him. Like in a couple games coming up, I mean, maybe against, I don't even know. I don't see any matchups that we are really fond of. It sucks. Jacobs, you're not getting a lot either. If he's your running back 2, you kind of have to hold if we don't have any depth. But if he's your running back 3, running back 4, go sell for someone like Javonte Williams. Go get that long-term upside on the roster. Now let's go over to a running back that we have had as a sell high candidate for a couple weeks now. I think this is our 2nd or 3rd week having him on this list. Alvin Kamara. Now, when we first put him on there and we got so much hate for it, you were able to go through, trade Alvin Kamara, go get someone like Najee Harris, go get someone like Dalvin Cook in return. Unsure if that's going to be possible now. Now, the issue with Kamara and why we're bringing him up for this video is I'm just going to go through and rank the worst matchups that you have for the fantasy football playoffs here. Like I said, some of these are stud level running backs, so it's hard. But the 4th worst schedule you have is this New Orleans Saints one, where they have the Bucs in week 15, the 6th best run defense. You have Miami, which is okay. Miami right now has an average run defense, and then another top 10 run defense in the Carolina Panthers in the championship week here. So tough schedule overall for Kamara. I will say, based on how Kamara scores and how he's not that reliant on the rushing efficiency of this offense, rather he is more so generating a lot of that value based on how he can make defenders miss in the open field and his usage in the receiving department. With Kamara, he's not going to be as reliant on what you're actually getting with his receiving role, which is why I'll say I think I'm not as interested in selling Kamara now as I previously was, because with Kamara now, I mean, with the knee injury, you're not going to be getting nearly enough value. You're not going to be able to trade Alvin Kamara for Najee Harris, Dalvin Cook, Austin Eckler, or Christian McCaffrey. Those were our suggestions 2 weeks ago. Of course, if you can do that, still go through and do it. But right now, I'd imagine that Kamara's price tag is more so going to be putting him in the range of someone like DeAndre Swift, Ezekiel Elliott, Joe Mixon, Nick Chubb. I think there we probably just need to be holding on to Alvin Kamara. I could be completely misreading the room. Let me know if you can still go through and trade Alvin Kamara for Dalvin Cook in your fantasy league, which of course, if you can do that, you need to go and do that ASAP. But one reason I'm going to be a little less willing to just say we need to sell Kamara here is, I mean, the entire reason I thought Kamara was an intriguing sell was based on the assumption that Taysom Hill was going to be drastically increasing his role in this offense with no Jameis Winston. And yet Taysom Hill, he increases it slightly. Taysom Hill does come out. I mean, he gets some carries, but we don't even know if that would have been the case if Kamara would have played. Maybe they were just trying to get the ball out of Mark Ingram's hand. They really just didn't have any depth at the running back position. So like, hey, Taysom Hill, we got to bump up the usage a little bit. He had 3 rushing attempts. He had a couple passing attempts this past week. But if Trevor Siemian's going to be the quarterback, we know Siemian's going to be checking the ball down out of the backfield. So it's an interesting spot. I would say if you could move Alvin Kamara for one of those elite level running backs still, do it. However, I doubt you're going to be able to in a lot of leagues. So I think instead you're probably just going to have to hold. Now our next running back actually has some great matchups in the first 2 weeks, but the last week he has a very tough one. This is going to be Nick Chubb. And I actually think that Nick Chubb's going to be a clear sell for us here. And yes, I'll admit, a couple weeks ago, when a lot of people in the flock wanted to go through and sell Nick Chubb, I said, nope, we're waiting. We're going to hold out. We're going to wait a couple weeks. And that way we can get that elite production for Nick Chubb in the starting lineup right now. And then we can sell him at a higher price tag later on, knowing that he will have those games with over 100 rushing yards consistently with no Kareem Hunt in Cleveland. Well, sucks because you get Nick Chubb on the COVID list. So instead of Nick Chubb being the guy going out there rushing for over 100 plus yards and getting those games of 25 to 30 fantasy points with no Kareem Hunt, it's Dearness Johnson. So yeah, that sucks for that hypothesis on Chubb. I still think that was actually a great strategy standpoint. But we had the plan to be selling Nick Chubb once we get to week 11, week 12 anyway. Maybe you let him play against the Detroit Lions this week. Obviously, that's a great matchup. Also, you should have no Kareem Hunt in this contest. Then we sell him going into week 12 against the Baltimore Ravens, knowing that Kareem Hunt, he is going to be returning just around the corner. He's peeking his little head around. So I will probably be saying in the long term, you're not liking the role that we have for Nick Chubb, knowing that Kareem Hunt will be getting every target out of the backfield, knowing that also with Kareem Hunt, we saw him have the red zone role at the beginning part of the season. But nonetheless, if you're looking at Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt really for the fantasy football playoff stretch, they actually have the Raiders and the Packers in the first 2 weeks. Now the Raiders have honestly one of the easier matchups. Going up against the Raiders, you're going to be excited about your running backs there. The Packers have been an average run defense up to date, even though they've been trending to be a lot better over the past few weeks. But the final week, you have them going up against the Pittsburgh Steelers here for the championship week, which I understand. Yes, with Pittsburgh, you've seen some running backs like DeAndre Swift this past week go out there and have a ton of success. Nonetheless, Pittsburgh has been a top 5 defense against the run so far this season. So if we can avoid that, and we can also avoid Nick Chubb, just knowing that Kareem Hunt's coming back in the long term, I think that would be a great thing to do. If we could sell Nick Chubb right now, and instead we can go get someone like Joe Mixon. That's something that we had ranked. Remember, oh my gosh, way back in the glory days, before the season started, we had Joe Mixon ranked ahead of Nick Chubb, and we got hate after hate after hate after hate. I can't even imagine how people who are just now finding this channel just don't believe me with that. But nonetheless, Nick Chubb, I think he would be an intriguing sell. Go get someone like Joe Mixon. Let me run over to Patreon really quick and pull up my rest of season rankings and try to figure out where I'm going to have Nick Chubb going forward. We currently, I believe, had him going into this week as a low-end running back 1, high-end running back 2, knowing that we were 1 week closer to us getting Kareem Hunt coming back in. I think probably we'd be looking to go through and move off of him. Yeah, so we have him as running back 13 in the same tier as Saquon Barkley, Darrell Henderson. We have him behind Joe Mixon, Aaron Jones, DeAndre Swift, Ezekiel Elliott. Of course, we're going to have to move Aaron Jones down in these rest of season rankings. And I'm recording this the day before. By the time you pull those rankings on Patreon, it should all be updated. Okay, so now our next running back is going to be a grouping of running backs. Right now, Tennessee looks like they're going to have a really bad schedule in the fantasy football playoffs. Tough for me to go through and tell you to make too many actions with the Tennessee Titans, however, just because we really don't even know who the running back is going to be. Hopefully, Derrick Henry owners get Derrick Henry back in. That's what I'm saying. This isn't that relevant. I was just going to go through and I was just going in order of the toughest defenses according to the schedule. So yeah, Tennessee technically right there. You're not excited about Donta Foreman. You're not excited about Adrian Peterson. You're not excited about Jeremy McNichols right now. However, so what am I supposed to tell you? Even with Derrick Henry, you can't go through and sell Derrick Henry if you're contending roster, knowing that you're getting no value right now. Even if we want to be avoiding some matchups where he has the Pittsburgh Steelers, he has the San Francisco 49ers, to be completely honest, it just simply is not going to matter much, because with Derrick Henry, this is a running back that it doesn't matter the matchup. He's going out there and you're going to be starting him as your running back 1 regardless. And at the same time, you're not getting anything for him in trade right now that would make you excited considering the injury. Let me know, what are the odds you think that Derrick Henry actually makes it back this season? If you're watching this as a Premier right now, hopefully I was able to hang out in the Premier chat throughout the entire time, but please let me know the odds you think Henry actually has at making a return. Obviously, I'd love to see it, and that's why this Tennessee Titans situation, not that actionable. Last player I'll talk about here will be Michael Carter. Michael Carter has some tough matchups. He's going up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the championship week. He has an average 1 against the Miami Dolphins. And like we said, apparently Jacksonville, according to these stats, Jacksonville right now is an average to an above average run defense, which I have no idea how. But nonetheless, Carter could be an intriguing sell. I just think that if you're going to look to sell Carter, it would have to be in one of those shallow formats. Like if you're playing in a 10-team or an 8-team league where we could go through and we could package up from Michael Carter to maybe say move Michael Carter and a running back like James Conner and get to a long-term upgrade, maybe someone like Joe Mixon, Saquon Barkley. That could be potentially intriguing. Carter would be a very nice depth piece. However, if you're playing in a 12-team or a 14-team or a 16-team format, maybe assuming that he can actually continue to expand his role going forward, I'm a little bit hesitant to say that he has access to that elite level ceiling, knowing that this is just an offense that is capped overall. So interesting spot with Carter. Hard to say that he is a bona fide sell just because you're not going to be getting enough value in a full PPR format in some situations. But yeah, that's all I got for you. I really hope that you enjoyed this video. Please go down there, drop that like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Of course, that helps us out so much. And go sign up for Underdog Fantasy. Go check out Underdog Fantasy. When you go make your first deposit on Underdog Fantasy with promo code FLOCK, they match you dollar for dollar up to a $100 deposit there. So please make sure you go through and support the channel that way. You can find the link in the live chat. You can find that in the description of the video. Yeah, that's all I got for you. Thank you, and I hope you have a great day.